not safe. Hey, it's not safe. It's not safe. They're not safe for church podcast.
I want to welcome you to the Not Safe for Church podcast, where I am your host, Rènold Kent. I'm super excited about today's episode. It's going to be a little bit different, but I'm excited. So what can you do right now? You can like, comment, and subscribe. You can do all those things right now, all three of those things right now. I can't even get the words in my mouth because I'm so excited about today's episode. Well, my co-host today is Renee. How are you, Renee?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good.
This is exciting because I actually have an opportunity to ask you some questions because normally you're the one always having the hard-hitting questions.
Yes, normally I am. So today, Renee is taking over the podcast. She's going to ask me some questions. I don't know these questions. Typically, when I have done something like this, I have sent the person questions. So I was kind of prepared. I kind of knew what was coming. But today, I don't know what's coming. And it's not my first time not knowing what's coming. I'm kidding. But yeah, Renee, I will put the ball in your court.
Cool.
But first, let me just thank the people for the ads. I gotta thank my sponsors. I want to thank CrossFit Social City. They're an amazing CrossFit gym all the way in the Spring Valley area. Omar and Abby are an amazing couple. They have amazing classes, an amazing schedule there. You gotta check out that gym. If you want that strength training, that CrossFit body like Omar and Abby, go to CrossFit Social City today. And you might find me there on the weekends because, I gotta get this body right. All right, I want to thank Dirt and Glitter Montana. Oh my gosh, she is one of the best photographers ever. Sharice is amazing. Book with her today. She does family photo shoots. She does all different type of photo shoots. She comes to Vegas a lot. So when she is in Vegas, you need to book with her. You can reach her at 406-691-0347. And you can also go to Instagram and just type in Dirt and Glitter Montana and she will be right there. I want to thank 103 Yoga. They are an esteemed yoga studio, not only offering yoga classes, but they have HIIT classes. They have boot camps. They have all type of classes that you need to get to. 103 Yoga is also in the Spring Valley area, and it's a gym that's popping. You need those hot classes to get that body right. And I also got to thank Avilaimage. Oh my gosh, he has been in the studio taking a lot of pictures of us, and it's just been going down. I want you to follow and support Avilaimage on Instagram at Avilaimage for all your image photography and film needs. He is thebomb.com. I'm just so grateful for all y'all, but guess what? This podcast costs money. So guess what? There are 3 ways to give. I got Venmo, I got Cash App, and I got PayPal. Help a brother out. It's not free. You can send $5 or you can send $500. God knows the amount, and every seed has a harvest. So help your boy out. Thank you so much. Let's get back into the episode. Renee, the ball is in your court.
I feel like you and I have such deep conversations when we're alone or we're on the phone or we're just being our authentic selves.
Yes.
And sometimes I don't think I have an opportunity to ask these kind of questions because we're always having different topics or more people. So
Yep.
I just figured it'd be fun. These questions in this discussion is just about open-mindedness and
Okay.
just beliefs between two people who have come from different backgrounds. So I was
Okay.
like, let's just have fun and just see what comes to mind. So I kind of wrote down some stuff and I was like, what are some things that, I grew up believing or have grown to believe?
Mm-hmm.
So my first thing is I was born and raised in a Catholic church.
Okay.
And as a Catholic, we are not supposed to believe in reincarnation.
Yes.
And so some people believe reincarnation happens because souls did not accomplish what we were supposed to learn in this lifetime. And now we're given chances to play different roles with people in our lives. For example, like my dad could have been my brother in a different life, and we just had to come back and learn different lessons.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will have this known as a soul contract.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, what is your belief? Do you believe in reincarnation?
Oh God, Renee. Reincarnation. I wouldn't say I don't believe in it. I haven't experienced it. I think for me, when life is over, I imagine this thing that I've been told called heaven, and it's a life where I just get to live again and live life abundantly with other people. And so I don't know if I reincarnate. I guess for me, and I hate to be this person. I think if I have little expectations because I believe disappointment is the distance between expectation and reality. And so for me, I believe there's a heaven, but after that, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Maybe I do come back to the earth, but I'm not against people who do think that. I haven't experienced it. And even when I do experience it, I probably won't be able to come back and tell y'all.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, it's not affecting me, so I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I think sometimes like souls leave Earth too early. And I think sometimes we have to still complete lessons that we need to learn from one another. So I think that we are supposed to come back down and repeat certain lessons because we didn't learn them the first time. But that isn't to say that we won't eventually reach heaven. I think that for me, it's because we didn't learn something that we were supposed to. Maybe it was a baby that passed too soon or, accidental. I do believe God has plans for all of us.
Yeah.
And I do believe in, a heaven or a different place that we go where we reach eternal peace. But I just wasn't sure what your take was because, I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe sometimes that we are meant to meet certain people in our lives, which is where I bring up the whole soul contract part. I think before we come to the earth plane, we agree to come and do life together. And maybe we don't know exactly what's going to happen because I do believe in free will, but we kind of are given like a blueprint of life and we're able to build that. So I was just curious as to what your thoughts were about that.
I probably would say I don't believe in it today. I haven't experienced it, but maybe in the future I will.
Yeah, because you know how some people are like, I feel like I'm an old soul.
Yeah.
I think that saying comes from having lived like multiple lives or maybe just have done this so many times that they're like, okay, this is like life is easier for some people than it is for others. And I think that just comes with like what they're supposed to learn when they're here. Yeah. Essentially.
I think for me, I would say I don't know. And I'm okay. I'm not a person, and I've said this even when we talk about Christian things, I don't have to have the answer for everything. Yeah. So, for me, it's just like, I probably would say like, do I believe in it today? I don't know. It's not really something that's pressing that I have to figure out. And I'm excited for the journey of what it will be like when my time is done. I don't want to die tomorrow, but I'm excited whenever that time does come. Hopefully, hundreds of years from now, I'll be able to be like, oh, like this is what happened. Yeah. And the sad part is I probably won't be able to come back and tell people. But
I think that's the point, is to not know. Just like the way we're not supposed to know how we were birthed, right? Yeah. Like you're not supposed to remember that. You're not supposed to come into earth just having consciousness. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have looked up, there are 12 different spiritual laws, and I'm going to read them to you. Okay. So 1 is the law of divine oneness. 2, law of vibration. 3, law of correspondence. 4, law of attraction. 5, law of inspired action. 6, law of perpetual transmutation of energy. 7, law of cause and effect. 8, law of compensation. 9, law of relativity. 10, law of polarity. 11, law of rhythm. And 12, law of gender. Now, these are believed by ancient cultures. It's just universal. That's why they say, Okay. Out of these 12, I want to know your perspective on number 7, which is cause and effect, which we know any action causes a reaction, and it's known to be this thing called karma. Do you believe karma is real?
I don't know if I believe karma is real, but I do believe whatever you sow, you will reap. So I believe if you sow bad seeds, you will reap a bad seed. Like whatever you're putting out there, you're going to get back. So some people call it karma, but I just believe it's the law of sowing and reaping. And so like, yes, I would say I believe in karma. I just don't call it karma. I would call it maybe God getting vengeance, or, but I know whatever you sow, you will reap. And I think even there's been times in my life where I'm like, man, like, what's going on? Like, why is my life like this? But sometimes it's because, like, what have I sown? Yeah. Because I haven't always sown good seeds. I haven't always done what I know to be right to do. Yeah. But I know yeah, like I do believe that whatever you sow, you will reap.
Yeah, I definitely have experienced my own
Yeah.
version of karma that I feel like I have maybe not necessarily, I wouldn't say deserved,
Yes.
but I have definitely earned maybe because of the things I've done to other people or, but that's what makes me make better decisions now.
Yes.
Right? Is because I'm like, okay, I know if I take this action, I know what comes back from it. And I don't want to like live waiting, knowing that something bad can happen to me or the people I love. Because, yeah, it might not happen to you, but it could happen to your children, your loved ones, the people that are in your life. So
Yeah.
I think that's always been something that as I'm getting older to believe to be a little bit more real.
Yeah.
But
I think I think even like some of these questions, it's like language.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of us, a lot of religions, a lot of spiritual things, we all believe the same things.
Absolutely.
It's just the language. Like karma may make me feel a little like, oh, it feels a little weird to say. But like sowing and reaping is the same thing as karma.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like the language that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah, just kind of like when people are like, oh, I'm praying, and some people are like, I'm manifesting, and I'm like, they're literally coinciding together. Are there any specific affirmations that you say in the morning?
Yeah, I have a long one that I say. I don't have a picture of it or anything. I can't remember it, but it's about like 26. Like I am, Rènold, I'm a person of integrity. I live a life full of gratitude. I mean, there's a lot of things I say, but every morning I say affirmations because I just believe if I tell myself who I am, the day cannot tell me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
People cannot tell me who I am. Situations cannot tell me who I am. If I wake up every morning and I'm already saying this is who I am, nobody else can tell me who I am because I've already told the day who I was.
Yeah. And you're speaking that into existence.
Yes.
And that's what I feel is like the most important.
Exactly. Well, if you're watching this podcast right now, what can you do? You should screenshot however you are watching it and share it on your social media. Yeah, right now on Instagram. Share it right now. Come on, because I'm saying some good stuff and my co-hosts are too. Share it. Let people know you watching it because guess what? That's how the podcast gets spread to everybody because what we believe, Jesus is for everybody. Now go back to the episode.
Is there any language that you say that you feel is different now that you are outside of the church that you maybe understand to be different?
I think now I'm just not so afraid of people who think differently than me.
Yeah.
And I'm more open to different perspectives, but I'm still very like, no, I believe this. Like I choose to believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
So like that's what I'm going to stand on. That's what I'm going to believe, but I'm not dumb enough or like I'm not so like closed-minded that if somebody has a different thought than me, that I'm like, oh, like that's just different.
I definitely, in my friendships through growing over the years, have had friends who are more religious than I am. And it's funny because like me and my best friend will say, we might not say the same things or do the same things, but she knows what's working for her is working for her and what's working for me is working for me because we're both growing substantially. And she's like, who am I to say that it's not real because what you're doing is making you a better person.
And it's working for you.
And at the end of the day, that's truly all that matters.
Exactly.
Okay. I believe you can always outgrow who you were before. And sometimes I say like, I don't even know who that person was before.
Exactly.
Do you believe that we can change the past versions of ourselves or rewrite our story?
Oh, literally, let me tell you something. I literally believe that at any moment you can change. I have lived it.
Yeah.
When I left the church, I got a job at Lululemon. Literally, I'm changing my story. Then after that, I went to go do something else. And now I do something else. And now I do a podcast. I was a worship leader. But I think your calling or your purpose, I don't believe your purpose ever changes. But I think how it's played out will look different. And so I think if we have a good idea of what our purpose is. So I believe my purpose in life is to inspire others. That's my purpose. That's my main purpose. But I think the places it operates looks different than it looked 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago it was at a church. Today it's in a podcast. Today it's in my corporate life. You know what I mean? Like, so I think we have to be okay with purpose looking different, but it's still the same purpose.
Yeah.
It just played out in a different place.
What have you done to show yourself forgiveness for who you've been in the past that you maybe no longer like? Is there any specific work that you've done?
I think heavy therapy. I mean, I think I have an amazing therapist.
Yeah.
And I think for me, having those conversations that I will be afraid to have with other people has been the thing that has helped me forgive myself.
Yeah.
And I think I realized I was only doing the best that I knew how to do. When you're only doing what you know to do, it's almost like it's so easy to forgive myself.
Because you were kind of living in survival mode.
Yes.
Yeah. I've done a lot of work to forgive who I was in the past because I maybe was not very good to certain people. Maybe my attitude wasn't good, or could have been maybe a little bit of a bully, but that's just because I was projecting my own insecurities on other people. And the way, I mean, you do through therapy, but the way I've done it is going through meditation and going back and forgiving my younger self and like giving my younger child, my inner child, like a hug and saying, you are just doing the best you could with what tools you had at that time, with the people who were teaching you the things that you knew. Now I know self-regulation and emotional regulation, which I would have never known before if it weren't for going back and saying sorry to me, because like I never, my natural instinct isn't to ever hurt anybody, right? Like that. Humans do, just because that's just nature. But I don't want to ever come from a place where I feel like that's who I am anymore.
And even on that, I think now I try to show up for people who remind me of where I used to be. So I feel like that's how I'm healing myself, by the people who I see in similar situations, being there for them. Like, okay, they work at a church, but they're unsure. And like, my goal is to never change. If you that's what you want to stay in that. But I want you to be healthy. I want you to be happy. I don't believe that God wants you to be depressed living out your calling or your purpose. And so for me, when I see people like that, I try to create conversation to help them think or help them get a new perspective or find a way for them to find a happy medium to be there.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to take this a little like out of the box.
Okay.
So I believe that there are different versions of us in different realities, right? And I think as we grow, there's this thing people love to call like the multiverse, right? Where like there's different versions of us living in different dimensions. Okay. And so I personally believe that my old self is no longer connected to who I am now, because that version doesn't even exist anymore. Like when I look at old pictures of myself, I'm like, who is this person? That's not me anymore. But I do believe that if, you take road A or road B, that fork in the road, it always changes. I feel like you're always given a decision, and whatever you make shifts and goes into different people. Do you have any belief that?
I don't know if I believe that. I think I know I am who I am. And so for me, I think all of everything I've done, everything I've been, is working together to make something good. So I'm not living in the past of who I was or what I've done, but I don't believe that like all that's gone.
Right.
Because all that is what made me who I am today.
Who do you think you would be if you didn't leave the church?
I hate when people get me. I don't know if that's an outcome. I honestly could not imagine a world where that would be an outcome. It was going to either be I get caught up in something, a scandal. Somebody would have found out that I was doing some stuff.
Yeah.
Or like but then I don't know, because I mean there's so many people who do all that stuff and never get caught. If I wouldn't have left the church, I probably would still be liked by a lot of people. I don't
Probably.
really.
Right.
If I would have stayed, I think I would have stayed, I would have had to believe what they believed. So I just don't know. I don't see an outcome where I would have stayed.
You definitely picked the right path, obviously.
Yeah.
But, we always look back, right? Because we've seen how far we've grown.
Yeah.
And to know that that's not even a viable option is just so fulfilling within ourselves to know that that's just that was never meant to be the outcome.
Yeah.
But, I always kind of look back and think, what if I didn't leave home? Like, what if I just stayed there and didn't, I would have grown differently.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be who I am today.
I probably would have took my life. And I don't say it super lightly, but I just could not. The way, the rate of my depression when I worked at a church, I don't know if I would have made it, or I would have been on medicine. And I'm not talking about anybody who is, cause some people, you got to do what you got to do. But I don't know if I would have just been able to stay in that type of environment and still believe what I believe and try to, because I was just getting older and I wanted to live my true life.
Yeah, your authentic
Yeah,
self, and you were just growing so vastly.
Yeah, and I think once I met people that really accepted me for me, I think that was the transformational thing. And I think sometimes you can meet people just for a season. I believe God will use a person for a season in your life just to get you where you're supposed to go, and then they disappear. That has literally been my story so many times in my life. It's almost scary. I can name 3 different women who have influenced my life, and we were super tight, and all of a sudden it was oh. I don't know what it is. It's really scary to me. And I just believe God can, and I think there's been people that I have helped along their journey to get them places. And then it just kind of evaporates. Oh.
And it's never malicious.
Yes, it's just
just sometimes just
things have changed. It's out of no, it's scary. And I've seen God even use me for people to get them where they needed to be. I connected this person to that person, and now they do business together. And it's whoa,
Do you feel good about connecting people though?
Oh yeah, I always feel good. If I can get you a coin, I always feel good.
I think that's the best part of you, is that you just genuinely want to grow into being a better person. But if you had the money, you would be giving back to everybody you possibly could, because you know what it's like to have money, and you know what it's like to not have money. And in this season,
Jesus.
the past, just even hearing you from season 1 to now, you have just even your outlook on life has just changed you. But you knew, ever since meeting you, you knew that it was going to get better. You had no idea how. You had
what was the how?
You're
where's the how?
What am I doing? And I just remember I could feel your energy of knowing like your sadness, because you just felt so alone and confused and just vulnerable, I should say, because what you did was really, really vulnerable. So I just want you to know that I respect you for all of what you've done. And I really can't even picture you being a different version than who you are now.
And I think for me, what people don't get is I really felt like what I was doing, what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I got signs from God that I was supposed to do a podcast. And even with this podcast, other things have not worked out in my life. But when it was time for me to have the money to do the podcast, the money has been there. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. It just feels like I'm supposed to be doing this. I don't really know why. I don't really understand. But the reason why I could walk away from what I walked away from was because I am confident that I heard a voice tell me to do it. I was like, and I still feel that way today. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I don't know why I have a podcast. I don't know why I'm on 50 something episodes. Like, I really don't. Like, I couldn't tell you why. But I feel and I know that God, the divine, has told me, like, this is what you're supposed to do right now. And I'm just trusting him in it. I don't get it though.
You've been in alignment without even knowing, because you trust your inner self so deeply. And I think that it takes a really strong person to stand confidently in that decision and know, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this production. I have no idea.
I think about like how I signed up when I first got here with Quan. I signed up for 6 months. I only had money for 2 episodes. My grandma bought my 2 first episodes, and then SJ had bought 3 after that. So like, I had 5 episodes. But I didn't know how it was going to work. But I just believed. And I think a part of me believed was because the people around me believed in me. And that's what I always, when I think about SJ, I think about because she believed in me, I was able to do it.
She was a very
people, SJ,
person.
the Johnsons, my sister, my best friends, like Luna, like, I mean, all these people, they all believed. And when you have people really believing in you, it's like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but they believe, so I have to believe. And so, like, that's why I'm still here right now.
You are making waves for so many people who are scared to come out as who they really, truly are.
Yeah.
If you were to reach the top, 100 of podcasts, and you look back and you can notice that you've made change, like, what is the one thing in life that would make you feel successful?
I think I think that my top 3 things are: I want to be financially stable. I want to have a successful romantic relationship. And I want people to know you can tell the truth and win. Like, when my life is over, that's all I want people to know, is that you can tell the truth and you can win. Like, that's it. Like, I don't, like,
engrave it.
Becoming number 1 on a podcast, like, that's cool, but like, I just want to make sure I have some money in my account.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a, like, if I ain't got no coins, and not like that, but like, I don't want to be stressed out at number 1. I want the bills to be paid and be number 1, okay? Because I feel like nowadays people just want to be famous, and like, that's not even my thing. Like, I just really feel like I have content that can really help people, or even not even help people. I think it creates conversation. And I think that's always been the goal of this podcast. From day one, when we were talking about Nellie's penis and talking about premarital sex, what did my podcast do? It created conversation in that church.
Absolutely.
Now, did it create the conversation I wanted? Maybe not. But it created conversation. My podcast, when I went back to it, recently with Jeff and Derek, what did it do? It created conversation. I got so many messages like, man, I agree with Derek. I agree with Jeff. So like, my whole thing is, I just want to create conversation. If I say something on a podcast you don't agree with, I want you to like, oh my God, let me call this person. Did you hear Rènold's podcast? Did you hear what he said? Da-da-da. Like, my goal is to create conversation, because I know if I'm creating conversation, I'm getting in your head. I'm getting in your mind, and I'm making you think. And I think a lot of people just don't think.
You do have a very wide audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird.
No, I love it.
It's like church people, then it's like unchurched people, then it's people, my gay brothers and sisters.
You've been humbled quite a bit. When you have been at your lowest point, what has pulled you through, through all of this? What has been the most pivotal moment for you, knowing that things are going to get better?
I think because I think the more I reflect on my life, I realize this is not the first time this has happened to me. When I was in college, I was leading worship at a church called Refuge Point Church. And I remember the pastor called me in his office, and he had heard that I was doing something, that I had a boyfriend or something. And at that time, it wasn't even true because I was in college. I was really, at that time, I didn't believe what I believe today. And he called me in and he was like, yeah, the church is going to have to, let you go because of financial reasons. It's not about, all that stuff because we know that's not true. This, but whatever you say, cool. I'm not mad at him. He said it wasn't because of that, but I don't know. And so I went through a season for 4 months. It was a small season, but I could not, I didn't get any calls to sing. It was like nothing was working. And it wasn't because people had heard about anything, because it was very private how that church handled everything. And I was like, this is weird. And recently I was thinking about that season, and I remember sitting in a service and a lady named Tanda Canyon was like, I just love this lady. I mean, she's like a black female preacher, very dramatic, funny, very, very charismatic, has a lot of charisma. And she said, nobody can silence a voice that's meant to be heard.
Woo.
And I remember sitting there thinking, because I had sang for 4 months and that was the longest. And I was like, nobody can silence a voice that's meant to be heard. A few months went by and all of a sudden I started leading worship at my home church. And from there, I led worship all the way till I got to Vegas. And for me, it's just a reminder of there are some seasons where God will put you on the bench. And I mean, he will put you on the bench. And I feel like sometimes doing this podcast, God had me on the bench. Okay, I'm doing something, but I'm on the bench. But I just have lived long enough to know if I have to wait for something, it'll always be worth the wait. So when I'm in my darkest season, what I do is I call people who can remind me of what God has done in the past so I can be okay for the future, so I can have hope. So sometimes I'll call my mom or I'll call Nate and I'm like, man, I just need to be encouraged. I need hope. And when I start to remember the past, it's he's just writing a story that I can't even imagine. Some people think I just do this podcast full time. No, I have a real job. And some mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't, I like what I do. It's a cool job. I like this job now. But it's this is the only reason I can go there every day is because I know that God has big plans for me.
It's temporary.
Yeah, I could do this maybe for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But I know in the end, God has a big plan for me. And maybe it's there. Maybe I'll do something in marketing there. Maybe I don't know what it is, but I know, because every morning I literally say this in my affirmations, circling back to that. I say, what do I say? I have a life-giving career where I get to function in my purpose. And if it's not that, if it's not life-giving career where I get to function in my purpose, then I know God's not done.
I think you've done really well at transitioning through all of your jobs, especially because you know that that's not permanent and they're not necessarily going to be your forever career. Do you see yourself podcasting for a very long time?
Right now, I'm the type of person that I only do things in my head for a certain, I'm okay. So at first I was I wanted to do 3 seasons. And now I'm I want a podcast till I'm 30. Right now I'm 27 and a half.
Yeah.
And so, hey, I'm going to podcast till I'm 30. And when I turn 30, I will reevaluate. Is it still working for me? Is it still, but I think for me, I just don't give up on things until I reevaluate. So I'm okay, I'm going to do 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. I did 3 seasons. Okay, so now I'm not really doing seasons. I'm just doing more and more episodes. And so I'm going to keep on doing episodes till I'm 30 and see what happens. Because what I have seen is, because I've been consistent, it has grown.
Absolutely.
I have listeners that I don't even know that listen every week, or I have friends. Literally had one of my friends were here in Vegas, and they're like, "Oh, my cousin listens to your episode every week." And I'm like, "Wow, that's so crazy." That's because I just see numbers. I don't see people.
Right.
And so it's just I'm gonna keep.
You really never know who's watching you, and I think that's honestly it's scary, but it's so beautiful.
It could be my enemies.
They're giving you energy.
But and I pray, at first I was like, oh, I don't want my enemy to listen, but it just be like, well, he's preparing a table in the presence of my enemies.
Absolutely. And you can transmute whatever is not positive to something that is.
Period.
And those views are going up. So that's all that matters. Do you feel like your friendships look different now? Like, do you feel like your friends look different or look at you differently because you have a podcast? That's not even just here, but like back home.
I think sometimes people think my life is way more glamorous than what it is.
Okay.
Like, they don't see, like, man, like, sometimes I'm struggling. Like, sometimes I don't have the money. Sometimes I don't, like, I think, I always say, like, yeah, my life looks really glamorous on Instagram. But, like, I'm struggling. I'm hustling every day to, stay afloat, to do this, to do that. And so sometimes I feel like with a podcast, people assume, especially because it looks like this. Like, Quan has a beautiful studio, and I mean, it's amazing. This is really nice, state-of-the-art equipment, and yeah, it looks like the real deal. It looks like I have made it in life. But I don't think people realize, like, no, every week I'm going to work, I'm working hard, and yeah.
I think though that's just people in today's society anyways,
Yes.
because like we have to have like 4 jobs to be able to survive. But I want you to know that I truly admire how hard you do work, because this for you is fun, but you also get to express yourself. And this is your way of getting out your emotions and feelings in a very positive way. I think this is good for you and your growth because you're reaching such a big audience.
Yeah.
And I love when I go home and people are like, oh my gosh, like you're doing a podcast with your friend. I'm like, you have no idea this like happened like so quick, and I love it, and I love being a part of it, and I love getting to, when they, even if they don't get to watch, they still see, and I love getting to explain your story to people.
Yeah.
And then they're like intrigued.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, wait, what? This happened to him? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm so proud of him, coming out of his shell and being able to just be who he is and really just have an audience where you get to share these things with.
Yeah. And I feel that way about you, Renee. I think I love that you're frequently on here, because it just kind of shows like, man, we don't agree on a lot of things, right? But to me, it shows what the whole point of the show is. Like, Jesus is for everybody. And I'm not saying Jesus has to be your person or whatever, but what I'm saying is, like, everybody has a seat at the table. Like, if we're talking about the Jesus in the Bible, everybody has a seat at the table. Like, nobody would have been left unfed just because we don't agree, just because we don't understand things the same way. Like, Jesus was the type of man that if he had food, he would give it to anybody. You don't have to agree. Like, that wasn't his point. He was leading by love. And so I think you being here is an example of that. Like, it's not a dictatorship here.
Right.
And
we
I
just
think,
grew up so different too.
Yeah, and it's like I think normally religious podcasts, religious spaces, everybody has to agree or agree enough. And I think I love that this podcast is sometimes super religious, but at the same time, we don't have to agree.
I just love even getting to have just open-minded conversations, because sometimes I don't know what your beliefs are.
Yeah.
And that's to anybody. I don't sit there and ask every person in my chair when I'm doing their hair, And I think that's kind of what's made me a more well-rounded person, is hearing different stories from different people from all different races and different walks of life. And I think it's just been so beautiful, and it's helped me be a better person and help me communicate with people a lot better. And so getting to know you has been such a blessing, because I maybe don't relate to some of the things you're saying, but I do relate to the struggle, and I do relate to having to be humbled and to feel like maybe you once belonged somewhere and you don't anymore.
Yes. And it's not that like I don't want to belong there.
Right.
It's just that when I'm there, it just feels like, this don't feel right. It don't.
Yeah, it just feels off.
Like, and it's weird to even sometimes go into those spaces and be like, man, I don't believe that anymore. Like, because I still love, and like I'm getting back into church, and going back and being in like I'm gonna be in a small group with some friends, and it's like I need that connection. I like that. But it also feels weird to just finally just be myself in those rooms.
Yeah.
Like it's like a whole new thing because for so long I was who that room needed me to be. And now I just get to show up as simply me.
That's like just honestly probably the best feeling that you can have is just knowing that you're not holding resentment anymore.
Yeah.
You're not holding that anger like from who you were in the beginning of the season, to know that you really felt so deeply like you knew that your path was to go this way, even though you knew you weren't necessarily being followed 100%. And now you are. You know, people are going to follow in your footsteps and they're going to make changes in their own lives because you gave them the courage to be different and to truly be themselves.
But people have, and I think for me, I just feel like I have to get to a place where people understand that and it's not a win. I'm not winning against anybody, but like I pray God will make my life a testimony that when you tell the truth, you win. Because I think until Christians start to see that, they will continue to live lies. I know so many people who just can't be themselves. And sometimes it's not even about being it's like, sometimes you just need time to figure it out. Like I went through a stage once when originally when I came out, I was in the streets. I was doing stuff trying to figure it out. Like, and I realized, okay, that's not for me. You know what I mean? Like certain things are not for me. Like, you know, I really love God. I really want to honor God with my body in certain ways. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I want to give everything to everybody. I want to wait for my person. And so, but even just having the space to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes we, as believers or Christians, we don't give people space to just live and figure it out.
You've lived in solitude for a while and lived in having to be alone and uncomfortable. And I think that's where, you know, we grow the most is in that place where we need to really figure out who we are.
Yeah.
And I think you're just starting to mature and you're just starting to become more of who you really truly see yourself to be, which is, you know, someone who's honorable, someone who's waiting for their man to come.
Period.
And you're starting to act as who you want to be. And I think that's when you show up as the person you want to be every single day, because you know that future person's coming for you.
Well, I pray.
It's so beautiful.
I pray.
I have one last question for you.
Okay, yeah.
When you see God,
okay,
what do you see? Like, can you describe to me who your God looks like?
When I see God, I see a all-loving Father, a perfect Father, a man who never gets it wrong, a man who loves me unconditionally, a man who, even when I get it wrong, never leaves my side. And so that's who I see. And I just wish that other people could see that. I wish that his representatives on this earth, or people who say they are his representatives, would represent that. I think the world would be a better place if people stopped trying to play God. Like we don't need another God. He's already there. He's divine. He's perfect. And so if we let God be God and let people be people, I think the world will be a better place. But I think so long the church has tried to play God. And that's why people are leaving in droves. That's why this new generation is like, what is going on? Because people are trying to play God. We don't need another God. We need you to try to be in his image, look more like him. If God is love, why can't I experience love from you? Even if you don't understand me, even if you don't like what that person is doing, why is your words filled with so much hate and lack of understanding and empathy? Like, yeah, God would correct people, but he would do it in love. The Bible says, everybody's talking about the Bible says, by my love and kindness I have drawn thee. Love and kindness is how you draw people. He lets you love and kindness, not hate speech, not derogatory comments, not talking about this group and that group. That's not how you draw people. You draw people by love and kindness. And when you don't understand somebody, take it to God.
In your earlier seasons, you had said fill the gap with love.
Yep.
And I think that made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives, because that's truly what gets most people through, is filling the gap with love. You may not understand where somebody else is coming through. You may not understand what they're going through, but you can just love them.
Yep.
And that's how we become better people. Jesus was a man on earth, and you may have your visions of what he physically looks like. But when you reach heaven, do you have any particular vision of what God will look like?
I think this goes back to my first question. Like, I'm not a person that really, I don't want to say I don't care what he looks like. I guess I don't know what he looks like. I would be shocked. I think when I get to him, I'm like, oh, okay, you cute, Jesus. You cute, God. I don't know. Like, I don't have no,
I just imagine when they say, like, you're going to the bright light.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I envision God being like source and energy and just a ball of like presence and brightness and beautiful and just welcoming and warm and loving and peaceful and safe.
Yeah.
And that's what I envision, like reaching eternal life to be.
I could relate to that. I think it'll be such a moment where I won't even be able to describe. I feel like people say he's undescribable. Like, you can't even contain him. I think I'll just be like, whoa, like, this man is something else, or a woman. I don't know. I don't know what people believe. I believe he's a man. I don't know.
People say they have near-death experiences.
Yes.
Where they go into this feeling of being, meeting God. Do you feel like that could happen for people where they've been able to come back and it wasn't maybe their time, like during surgeries? People say you see themselves standing over their bodies and having those experiences.
There's a lot of books like that. I haven't experienced that. I don't know.
I think I'm just open to the idea of it because that shows me that there really is something beautiful on the other side.
Yeah. I think I'm open to the idea of it, but also it's like, it's hard to believe something I haven't experienced.
Of course.
But I mean, that's like faith. That's God. So it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, they saw that. I didn't see it. So I just like, it's interesting. Like, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I don't put a lot of weight on it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's a cool story.
These are the things that keep me up at night, Rènold.
Oh my God. Girl, they don't keep me up. I go to sleep like,
I love learning.
I'm like, baby, you do you.
I'm excited.
I'm like, you do you. I'm gonna do me. And that's your business.
I think through grief and loss, it gives me hope that my people on the other side are going to welcome me and with God when I come through. And I'm just going to be just warm and happy.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm not afraid of necessarily death anymore. I think maybe I was afraid of like being in pain.
Yep.
And now that just from what I, read or the things that I've heard people to have experienced is that it's bliss and that there's nothing to be afraid of because God is going to welcome his children back home.
I believe that. I'm just excited that it's a mystery.
It is.
I like knowing
mystery.
that it's going to be a unique experience that I've never experienced before. And so I guess for me, I always just want to live in that divine mystery of like what's going to happen. Like, I don't have to, like, I don't know. I'm a person that I like surprises.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's going to be a pleasant surprise.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. That's why we have the faith.
Yeah.
Well, Rènold, I'm really proud of you.
Thank
you
you
for letting me ask you some random,
I know, I was nervous.
out of the box questions.
I was so nervous.
I'm never going to put you on the spot to me. make you answer some things you really don't want to answer. But thank you for letting me explore these with you.
Oh my God, thank you. I'm trying to find a cue sheet so I would know how to answer this. Renee, you add so much value to this podcast. I'm glad I got to answer these questions. I feel like people might get to see another side of me. I feel like this felt really good. Yeah. I can kind of see the cue sheet from Quan. What does it normally say? I want to thank my sponsors, my co-host, and I want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. I want to thank Claiborne Urban Loops. I have good vision, y'all. If y'all saw how far this computer is, y'all be proud of me. Remember to subscribe and share, give and receive. This podcast is not free. And until the next time, Jesus is for everybody. Follow us on Instagram at NSFC Podcast. But Jesus is for everybody. Till next time. Everybody. Everybody.